Hello and welcome. If you're gearing up for exams, you know how crucial it is to stay on top of current affairs. Well, you're in the right place. We're about to break down today's must-know topics into a super concise 5-minute briefing. Let's get right into it. So, here's what's on the docket today. We're kicking things off with some big economic and governance news. Then, we'll jump to India's global role in climate and academics. After that, a really important look at our strategic security, and we'll wrap it all up with a quick round of sports and general knowledge, a perfect mix for your exam prep. All right, first up, let's talk money and management. We've got two really interesting stories here. One is about the very foundation of India's economic policy, and the other is a perfect case study on how accountability works in the real world. Okay, for anyone studying economics, this is bread and butter. It's called flexible inflation targeting, or FIT. So, what is it? It's basically a balancing act. The Reserve Bank of India has a target for inflation, but, and this is the flexible part, they won't slam the brakes on economic growth just to hit that target perfectly. It's all about finding that sweet spot between stable prices and a growing economy. And what is that target, you ask? It's 4%, with a little wiggle room of 2% up or down. So the goal is to keep inflation somewhere between 2 and 6%. But the big news here, the real headline, is that this framework has been extended all the way to 2031. That's a huge signal of long-term policy stability, telling us that this approach is here to stay. Now let's go from that high-level policy right down to something happening on the ground. You hear the word accountability thrown around a lot, right? Well, this is what it actually looks like in practice. A complaint about the food on a Vande Bharat Express train has snowballed into some pretty serious consequences. And check out how this chain of accountability worked. It all started with just one passenger complaint back on March 15th. That triggered an official investigation, which confirmed there were real problems. And the response? It was swift. Indian Railways fined its own catering division, IRCTC, but they didn't stop there. The private company that was actually providing the service got hit with a massive 50 lakh rupee fine, and their contract was terminated. That's a zero-tolerance policy in action. Okay, let's zoom out a bit for our next section and look at India's place in the world. We're going to touch on two very different but equally important areas: our commitment to fighting climate change and our rising status in higher education. Wow, just look at these numbers. India has submitted its new climate action plan to the UN, and these goals are seriously ambitious. We're talking about a 47% cut in the emissions intensity of our GDP, getting 60% of our power from clean sources, and creating a massive carbon sink. The takeaway here is that India is really stepping up its game and setting the bar higher. Now, here's a term you absolutely need to have in your notes for your exams: NDCs, which stands for Nationally Determined Contributions. It's pretty simple, really. Under the Paris Agreement, each country has to come up with its own plan to tackle climate change. These NDCs are the heart of that global effort. From climate leadership, let's turn to academic leadership. The new QS World University Rankings are out, and there's some incredible news for India. We now have 27 different university programs ranked in the top 50 in the world for their subject. Get this, that's more than double the number we had just 2 years ago. It's a massive jump and shows how competitive our universities are becoming. And here are some of the heavy hitters. You can see the IITs are just crushing it in engineering, and IIMs in Ahmedabad and Bangalore are right up there with the best business schools on the planet. This kind of recognition is a huge deal for India's reputation as a top-tier education destination. Okay, time to shift gears to a topic that ties together our economy, our security, and our foreign policy. We're talking about energy, and specifically how India is protecting the vital flow of fuel that keeps our country running. So let me ask you a question. You're looking at the Strait of Hormuz. Why is this narrow little strip of water so incredibly important? Well, because a huge chunk of the world's oil and gas has to pass through it every single day. Any disruption here sends shockwaves across the entire globe. And that brings us to another key term you should know: maritime choke point. Think of it like a major artery for global trade. If it gets blocked, everything grinds to a halt. The Strait of Hormuz is one of the most critical choke points in the world, right up there with places like the Suez Canal. So what's India doing about this? To protect our energy lifeline in this very tense region, the Indian Navy has launched Operation Urja Suraksha. Urja Suraksha literally translates to energy security, and that's exactly what it's all about. Indian warships are right there, escorting our tankers carrying crude oil and gas safely through the area. And if you're wondering just why this mission is so critical, this table tells the whole story. India is the third largest consumer of oil in the entire world. A huge amount of that oil comes through the Strait of Hormuz. So Operation Urja Suraksha isn't just a naval mission. It's a mission to protect our entire economy. All right, let's finish things up with our final section. Time for a quick fire round of sports highlights and some general knowledge. Exactly the kind of stuff that can snag you some extra points on an exam. First up, in sports. At the Asia Cup Archery Tournament, India is off to a great start. We've already bagged 2 bronze medals in the team events, one for the women's recurve team and another for the men's compound team. And with more finals coming up, that medal count is definitely going to climb. Okay, pay close attention here because this is a classic exam question. What's the actual difference between recurve and compound archery? The number one thing to remember is that recurve is the Olympic style. Its bow tips curve outwards. Compound bows use a whole system of pulleys, which makes them super accurate but keeps them out of the Olympics, at least for now. Remember that distinction. And now for our general knowledge tidbit of the day. Any idea what the national fruit of Malaysia is? It's the one and only durian, famously known as the king of fruits. Love it or hate it, you've definitely heard of it. And here are a few wild facts about it. Its smell is so powerful, it's actually banned on public transport and in many hotels across Asia. The trees can grow up to 50 meters tall. That's huge. And it's so important culturally in Malaysia that they have entire festivals to celebrate it. So, we'll leave you with a big question to think about. We've talked about economic policy, energy security, and climate leadership today. As India's influence on the world stage continues to grow, which of these 3 do you think will be the most critical for our future? There's no easy answer, but thinking about how they all connect is key. That's all for today. Keep up the great work, and we'll catch you in the next briefing.